Hey everybody, welcome back to the Quest for the Bestest. It's the podcast from Backlot Banter where we have already reviewed every single Best Picture winner plus one, and now we've got the other sort of Best Picture winner to tackle today as our final movie review of the Quest for the Bestest. Today, of course, we're talking about La La Land, which for 2.5 minutes...
2 minutes and 23 seconds.
Oh, it's really close. Yep. It was the winner, quote unquote, until Moonlight was revealed to be the actual winner. But we still think that it deserves to be talked about. Also, because we just can't give up this show. We got to keep doing it. So today we're gonna discuss La La Land. That other film, though, that we talked about last week was Sunrise by F.W. Murnau, 1927, that the Academy did give a top award to, just not the one that they would decide 100 years later is Best Picture. We thought the film was quite interesting, but we weren't really all in agreement about this very late silent film. It got a 7.1 out of 10 for the average score, and that would place it at spot number 66 on the list, in between, let's see which one's in between Dances with Wolves and Gone with the Wind. So, Murnau, you didn't get it all the way up there on the list, but that was quite an interesting discussion. I highly recommend you go check it out. And now today, we are going to talk about Damien Chazelle's La La Land, which was sweeping the country a couple years ago. Everybody was talking about this film, but it didn't win. It almost did. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about it. Before that, though, I do believe Abram has a featured comment from somewhere.
Yeah.
Some video.
Yeah.
Someone has said something. What is it, Abram?
Many people have said many things, but I'm going to this person named All Talking Pictures on our Wings review, and we are just here.
My friend Dalton.
Dalton. Hello, Dalton.
Yes.
I know you.
Dalton, who made a video about all the Best Picture winners, and that their channel exploded in like 2 days, and they got like 5 times the amount of subscribers and like 300 times the amount of views we've ever gotten. So you know what? I'm not jealous.
And that's a very good video. I've seen it too.
It's a great
video.
fucking video.
I haven't seen it, Dalton. You're not famous.
Also,
to
I'm
me.
not jealous.
Exactly. Abrams' love is the toughest to attain, so.
But we're here taking our victory lap for finishing the Quest for the Bestest, and Dalton left us a very, very thoughtful little note here, which I'll read out, saying, "Congrats on finishing. This is such an impressive project that you've all put together, and I feel really lucky that I got to discover it while it was still in progress, even if it was towards the very end. When I was watching all the Best Picture winners, I also saved Wings for last. It's incredible and emotional, and also fascinating that the very first winner is essentially a prototype for the modern blockbuster. Sound hadn't even hit yet, and Hollywood already had pretty much nailed the formula. We'll be here for whatever you guys do next, and if it's all the BP nominees, this will give me an excuse to fill in the gaps I have too."
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
thanks, Dalton. What a lovely comment from a fellow Best Picture enjoyer. We
Yes.
could call ourselves Best Picture
Enthusiasts.
enjoyers
A
now.
little bit of fun insider baseball for you all. We haven't decided what's going to happen next.
No, we haven't.
We actually have not talked about it. Yeah, we
No.
still need to figure that out.
Yeah.
I think we're going on a little bit of a hiatus
Yeah.
to figure that out. Do a little prepping for some bonus quest videos
yeah.
to wrap things up.
We will, of course, be doing at least one. We're going to milk this a little bit longer and do a, similar to Dalton, we watched all the Best Pictures video. Maybe we'll just download his and re-upload it and see how many views that gets.
That's a great idea. That'll really get our channel going.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
We'll just redub it. We'll just take all the lines and have us record.
That's good,
it.
yeah.
It'll be...
It's interpretive. Fair use, fair use, fair use.
Yeah, fair use. And if that doesn't work, we might just do something of our own. But we'll
we
talk
might
it
come
out.
up
We'll
with
talk
our
it
own
out.
ideas.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes peeled for that. We've got more coming. Don't worry about that. We're going on a little break after this, but we're not going anywhere in the long term. So, Backlot Banter is here to stay, and the Quest will too, in some various other form.
Yes.
Now,
La La Land, though.
La La Land, what a movie. Who wants to give a little plot synopsis of this here film?
I will.
Tanner, I think you should.
I
give
like
it.
waiting until Tanner
Okay,
says
yeah.
something.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in Los Angeles, California, the titular La La Land. We have our two lovable main characters, Mia and Sebastian, portrayed wonderfully by Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling, respectively.
A lot of adjectives, Tanner, for your
Oh,
objective plot
excuse me.
synopsis.
I didn't know I was supposed to remain objective here. Anyway,
Don't worry
Mia
about
is an aspiring actress, Sebastian, a aspiring jazz musician who is working some odd jobs and wants to ultimately own his own club. Mia, as many aspiring actresses do, wants to make it to the big time, but is stuck in a Warner Brothers coffee shop on the Warner Brothers lot. Although, we have some failed meet cutes at multiple points early on in the film, they eventually do meet each other at a party, they hit it off quite nicely, and a flourishing romance emerges. They inspire one another. Mia decides to write her own one-woman show, and Sebastian decides to take up a job with his good friend / enemy, John Legend. My personal enemy as well, John Legend.
My good friend.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Friend of the show.
And while both of them see some great success from these things, it does drive a wedge in their relationship, and they do end up growing apart and ultimately breaking up. Then we time skip 5 years, and they're both wildly successful, but at what cost? That cost is a relationship with one another.
Whoa.
Romance.
Yeah.
Romance.
Tanner, nicely done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very well done. Yes. Who?
And no interruptions. It was
Yeah.
it was lovely. Smooth.
Mm-hmm. A rarity on this show. Who wants to start off with their thoughts on the film? Tanner.
I colored it a
think
little
we're
bit.
gonna be in
My mistake.
We're gonna be in agreement
Yeah,
on
yeah.
this one. I just know it already. But who wants to start?
Does anyone not like this movie?
Absolutely.
And this goes out to you in the audience as well. I think this is one of the most beloved movies of
for sure.
the last decade or so. It is a film that I think became so instantly iconic, and because it marries modern filmmaking techniques and the sort of pizzazz that comes with a very young and fresh-faced filmmaker making a big budget, sort of large-scale movie like this, but while retaining enough qualities of they don't make them like they used to, that this is marrying those two elements together in a way that makes this an incredibly distinct film, because it feels equal parts retrospective and modern, and I really, really do love that. And as someone who's not particularly a fan of the musical genre, as we've talked about a few times on here, though there are certainly notable exceptions, I think La La Land was really the first time that I watched a film that had such good songs and such a great sense of style that I didn't care that it was a musical. And
Tucker,
that's
here's the
obviously a
thing.
very
I want
subjective
to
thing.
jump in here. At a certain point, there are enough musicals that you like now that I don't think you can say you're not a fan of the genre. You just don't like.
All right.
You just don't like
Okay.
some musicals, and that's
Yeah,
the case with a lot of people, actually.
I just find it easier to say I'm not a fan of musicals.
Except for this one and this one and this one and this one.
Exactly. There are exceptions
Yeah.
to the rule. But I love this
Yeah.
movie. It instantly became one of my favorites. When I watched it, I think Another Day of Sun is probably one of my top 5 favorite songs of all time. Whenever I hear it and there's the opening notes, I always slam my fist on something, as Tanner can attest
Yes.
to, whether that's a car seat or my girlfriend's leg when we were watching the movie the other day. I adore this
Dude,
movie.
you're
It
not
has such a
supposed
sense
to
of
admit
energy.
to that kind of thing on recording.
Yeah.
Cancel him.
It was just with the energy of La La Land. It's Damien Chazelle's fault, if anything. Justin Hurwitz. I love this movie. Come on, guys.
I'll
Pick it up,
hop
pick it
on
up.
next, and I say I love this movie too. You really nailed it there, Tucker, with this blending of not ancient, but older film sensibilities with modern techniques and a story and themes that just resonate with me. Music that is hummable and memorable, and just it's earwormy, but I don't hate to have it stuck in my head. I like to have it stuck there. And I think the performances are really good. And I think that the portrayal of Los Angeles is something that I found myself really gravitating towards this time around.
It's like a character.
Tucker, here's a little BLB backstory. This movie came out right before Tucker and I, in high school marching band, went to LA to go perform at the Pasadena Tournament of Roses parade. And so I remember seeing the movie and then going to LA and being like, oh my God. And now the trip
It's the
didn't
streets
have
from La La Land.
yeah, there were billboards of the movie around, and I was like, oh my God, it's the billboard, because they don't have that stuff where we're from. So I think that this film really succeeds as a love letter to filmmaking and to Hollywood in a way that, when it first came out, I was like, oh, it's another stupid movie about movies. It's not. It's about a lot more than that, and the romance feels really good, even though it hurts. This movie hurts so good, and I love it for that.
Yeah. Abram, say something.
I can't wait any longer. I gotta talk about La La Land.
Well, especially because it's your turn.
Yeah.
It would be really weird if you waited any longer.
I said at the end of last episode that La La Land was my second favorite film of all time, and that's no longer true. It's not my first favorite film of all time.
So this is the best movie we ever reviewed on Quest.
Yeah,
It's actually the best movie we could possibly review.
Certainly, certainly my favorite, as it would have. It's really interesting for me to return to La La Land because I think this is my fourth viewing, but the first three were all in high school. I returned to this film. A lot's changed in my life since I watched La La Land, and I found in this new watch a film that grew with me, and I found a film that I connect to on a much deeper level. I think it's heartbreaking and empowering, sort of in equal measure, and maybe it's about filmmaking, but to me it's just sort of about creative life, and I think it's if you can feel seen by a movie that doesn't know you exist, I think I feel seen by La La Land. But for as deep as sort of my personal resonance with the film is, that's largely a function of incredible filmmaking. Because there's some films that resonate with me quite a bit, like Batman vs. Superman, that are not very good movies. And this is...
He made it!
Clip it.
Clip it. You can
Canceled.
But La La Land is an incredible piece of filmmaking for all of the reasons you guys have said and more. I'm really excited to talk about how the camera moves. I'm really excited to talk about the performances of both of our leads. I'm really excited to talk about not only this blend between classical Hollywood and modernity, but also this blend between the sort of diegetic reality of the storyline and this sense of this dreamlike sense of the future and the dreamlike perception of the events around our characters and the ways those sort of intersect and we're pulled into and out of very quickly and very meaningfully. I think this is a deeply, deeply intentional film, and I really do think that it's pretty much perfect.
Tanner? You like this movie?
Yeah, I like this one. I felt a bit of a challenge going into this because what can we say about La La Land that hasn't already been said? And the answer is probably nothing. As Tucker said, this is
some jokes,
humor. Perhaps, yes. But this is become one of the most lauded and beloved films of the modern era. If any film can be labeled a modern classic, this is it. It has skyrocketed the career of Damien Chazelle to the less well-received Babylon, but unjustifiably
really
less well-received.
Yeah.
I can't wait to read that
Babylon
one.
Hive, rise up.
Yeah. But no, obviously I love La La Land. And as Abram said, there's something new I get out of it, something new I find to love about it every single time that I watch it. Just because everything is wonderful in this film. It's just it fills you with wonderment every time you watch it. It's breezy, it's nice, it's beautiful, it's funny, it's heartfelt, it's any other adjective you can throw at this thing. La La Land embodies it and takes it in stride.
Yeah, I think that the one adjective that we haven't mentioned that I think is part of why this film feels so important and reaches that modern classic status is this is an iconic film. It has a lot of iconography of its own. It sort of has its own version of LA that is equal parts realistic and wondrous.
Like
and I really think, the city really makes you feel like Spider-Man. But I think close enough. But I think that the iconography of this movie is why I personally resonated with it so much is the poster which we have on our wall downstairs that is a deep purple with splashes of white and yellow. It's such a distinct color palette for this film to sort of go for, and the bright primary colors that it establishes over a relatively mundane city that is made of gray streets and gray buildings, but there's life and color to this. And that combined with the choreography and the camera work, I think allow even the simplest of shots or scenes, or I've seen a party scene, I've seen a dance scene, I've seen an audition scene. There's ways that through the cinematography and the storytelling of this film, we're able to get such instantly iconic frames, instantly iconic shots, pans, movements, character looks. This film is able to sort of like continually one-up itself in the way that that it grabs you and establishes itself in film canon. But I think that, frankly, it starts at its best. I think the opening, Another Day of Sun, musical sequence on an actual highway in Los Angeles,
close down a
with actual
freeway.
people on actual cars. They close down a freeway. Is one of the best film sequences of all time, I think, I would say. And it's certainly my favorite musical sequence of all time.
The way that this movie opens, not only does it have that scene, it's like a oneer, right? The camera just flows around, and there's this... It looks like there's 400 people dancing on this overpass, and it goes up to the box truck, and they open the box truck, and there's dudes inside with the timpanis. Boom, 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 boom,
I'm getting chills.
It's like...
Goosebumps.
It is so wondrous, and it is, it's something that you couldn't have done back in, I would say, the golden age of musicals, which is kind of what I find that classic feel comes from. Films like that we've reviewed, Gigi and West Side Story and
American Paris.
American in Paris, very much so with the colors.
Yes.
I think that one is really...
Singing in the Rain, maybe?
Yeah. So these musicals maybe. That's a stretch. I think that it sets our tone immediately. We have our characters in our bright clothes dancing in a totally unreal, like, this is fantasy, this is not real, but except it is real because everybody's stuck in traffic in LA, and that's where we get our first introduction to this, like, the city as a character. I'm gonna be cliche, okay? I'm just gonna say,
you're not gonna do it with any hint of irony.
No, the city is a character in this movie, but it sets it up such that the city is it is simultaneously fantastical and musical and movie-like, but it's also very real, and characters in the city have real-life LA problems like, I can't find my car. Oh my god, my car is missing. I can't get out of my car.
Dude, where's
I'm
my
stuck
car?
in traffic. These are real LA problems that I find played out. And then
every LA issue is centered around vehicles.
Yeah, well.
Yes, I'm a firm believer in that. We move from that sequence to the next one in the apartment, and the next one into the party scene, like, boom, boom, boom. And we're into the movie. I find that I'm so engrossed and so just ready to see what happens next, even though musical sequences don't always grab me. These two that start the movie before we even really have any plot let us know so much about the characters in them and just set us up for what is going to be a great ride.
I do want to talk about the city and how it relates to our characters, because that was something that really jumped out to me on this watch, and we can get to that when we get to Mia and Sebastian. But no, this opening sequence, Another Day of Sun, is simply put iconic. I mean, I watched some of the behind-the-scenes stuff on this, and
there's an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah,
in the
exactly. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes featurettes here. And Damien Chazelle, one thing he said, in addition to all the like logistical stuff of they did like 3 days of rehearsals, and it was like overcast the morning they were actually going to film it for real. What he said was he wanted to take a big bombastic musical sequence, open the film with it, but also in a modern film, set it in a location and set it with a sense of bombast that previous films, the classic Hollywood musicals, could only achieve on backlots, on the Warner Brothers lot, or the MGM lot, or what have you. And he wanted to put that in a real location. And that's what sells it. I mean, obviously, as we've been saying, and that's what sells the whole thing.
The ending shot where you're the kind of, we've been floating around inside our scene, and then it pans up, and you can see the mountains, and you can see the skyline, and you're like, ain't no way that's CG, that's real. Lordy, they shut down a freeway.
And juxtapose that with the very end of the film. I know I'm jumping a whole lot, but juxtapose that with the very end of the film. We mentioned in American in Paris, but that's exactly what that is. It is very clearly, very opaquely a backlot with a matte painting on the background and some dancers, and the road like stops at being part of the set and like trails off into the horizon on the matte painting. It felt very American in Paris to me, but that's the line that La La Land walks so deftly. Is this like nostalgia for those films, for old Hollywood, for classic Hollywood, and then like modern new age cynical even filmmaking and storytelling.
What I really like about this opening sequence, because I do think that Another Day of Sun is probably the best musical number in the film. It's not my favorite, but I do think it's probably the best. And I think that it so quickly establishes this sort of meshing of the fabrics of real and imagined reality, as I was mentioning before. Um, because I love, not only is there a wonderful spectacle to the number, but then it's so seamlessly transitions back into the grounded sense of La La Land, wherein everybody jumps back into their car on cue and immediately we're honking, and then the camera is down into the car with Mia. I think that's so wonderfully done, and it speaks to how now you guys are way more like video essay pilled than I am, so I don't know if there's any less cliche. But to me, the city of Los Angeles isn't necessarily a character so much as it is a playground for our characters, in that it can be whatever they need it to be at the time. It is a freeway, but it is also the dance stage, and that's what I think is really fun about this blended sense of reality. In that not only can the viewer not really tell the distinction between what is maybe actually happening and what is sort of heightened per the tropes of the musical genre, but I don't think the characters can tell either. And I think that it ultimately doesn't matter where the reality of a scene begins and where it ends, because ultimately I think La La Land, and it becomes much much more overt in that in Mia's final sequence, which we'll talk about when we get there. But the whole film is in our characters' heads, I feel, and I think that's really excellent, because to me, La La Land is as much about sort of moods and headspaces as it is about physical people and physical places and physical seasons and plot points. And I like how quickly we establish this idea.
To relate to what you just said, Abram, about how the film feels as though, and the setting feels as though it's in our characters' heads, that's what I was hinting at with what I wanted to say about our characters and the setting. Because as much as we joke about and I'm putting it to bed right here, we're digging a 6-foot hole and burying the city as a character, because I don't really think
it's not a playground.
I really don't think it is. Like, for me, the Raimi Spider-Man New York City is a character in that film. Like, we have all the wacky background characters, and we see them for a flash, and they're singing the Spider-Man theme song and stuff like that. But it feels the opposite here. Mia and Sebastian feel uniquely singled out in the city. The city is basically just a backdrop for them, their dreams, their aspirations, and their romance. Because what I wanted to say was, Los Angeles is one of the most populous cities in the world, but it feels so novel whenever we see another person, like, doing something on screen. I think like Sebastian's sister, who's just in like the one scene, or Mia's boyfriend, who's just in that one scene. They feel so ancillary, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that they're like, what are these people doing in Mia and Sebastian's story? What are they doing here? Get out of here.
They're not supposed to be here.
And there's a couple key moments. A lot of times you don't even like get a good picture of them, like when Mia and Sebastian are going on their like first date on the Warner Brothers set, and they like come across that the filming location there, and then you just see like the back of the director from like across the street. You don't get to know that person. You get to see that person. It's just a disembodied voice, kind of. And another good example is Mia's first audition, where it's just her and then 24 other like redheaded actresses all wearing white button-down shirts and black slacks. Like, it's just all the characters. The other people in Los Angeles don't feel important. It feels purely like Mia and Sebastian.
Yeah, and I think the film ends up feeling very distinct with the relationship between our characters and the city, because, which is not a character, I'm not going to say that, but they don't feel like they belong there. Neither of them really love Los Angeles. Like, they're mostly annoyed by it, and they're like, oh, traffic and the industry and the way that people get around and talk to one another is just kind of annoying. And you don't really see that very often, especially not in rom-coms, where the people in rom-coms are so entrenched in the world that they're in, and they've got all these locations that they've been going to since they were children, and there's just such a sense of place in so many of these. But I really like that we've kind of plopped two characters that don't like a location into the location that we have to like learn to love, and they learn to love the city through their love for each other, and I think that ends up creating a really unique dynamic, and the places that they visit together become important to them, not because they love Los Angeles and the hustle and bustle and they're really excited about the industry. No, they kind of are annoyed by it, but they like each other and the memories they created there, and that makes each scene feel very distinct because we're learning about this world and what makes it important to them alongside them. Because we don't really learn too much about their day-to-day lives before. It's kind of just assumed of like, yep, Sebastian was, going from gig to gig. That's fine. Mia was working at the coffee shop and going to auditions occasionally. That's fine. But it's very basic, simple stuff because they've been just going through the motions. They're just trying to get by. And it's not until they meet one another that they feel like they can explore the city at their own pace. And I really, really like that. It makes it feel, this film feels so distinct from other ones.
In some way, I feel like they unlock the city by meeting each other when Sebastian gets Mia to go out to the Royale Theater, and they go see a movie, or the fact that Sebastian has this jazz club that he's obsessed with and hates that they've turned it into the Samba Tapas bar.
Pick one.
Those are places that like anchor us, but then provide the space and the space and the setting for these two lovers to experience each other and to find out about what they do like about the city. And I think it gets to this, what Abram was talking about in his opening statements, which I really found resonated with me, was what creative life is like and what being an artist is and how difficult that is and how much being an artist can really screw up your personal life and make it very difficult to be around other people and to be in relationships. And that's a theme of this film that I had no clue that theme was in there the first time I watched it, but this time it was like
quest
really
analysis mode achieved.
Yeah, it was boom, it was there at the top for this latest viewing. And I think the setting just hammers that home a lot.
I really want to get deep into theme in this, which I know would be a real left-hand turn for the show.
Yeah,
but
obviously.
On Quest?
Even before we get there, there's this idea that is unlocked in my mind that I never really knew before. So here's a little education lesson for you. A place and a space are different.
Mm-hmm.
A place just exists, but it becomes a space when people come into it and they make it their own. No, okay. I fucked it up entirely. Other way around. I fucked it up entirely.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The space is this sort of physical thing. It becomes a place when people come into it and it gains meaning. I think that the production design of this of La La Land is quite excellent. And I think that it embodies this idea that I horribly butchered, but people understand now, hopefully, very, very well. What I really love and didn't really notice necessarily until this rewatch is how Sebastian's like condo unit changes.
Ooh, yeah.
Because we get that scene.
Very the father pilled.
We get.
No, not really. I just wanted to say that.
It made me think. Because we get that moment with his sister where they are there, and she makes a remark about how you need to unpack your boxes. You're living like a hermit or whatever. And there's this shot that I love after Sebastian and Mia have gotten together of just his living room, and it is furnished, and it's lived in, and I think there's this great sense of, for as much as maybe the environment is taken for granted and subservient to the characters, it also very clearly responds to them, and they respond to it, and I think the ways we can notice these changes in the production design is very, very interesting. Another one I love is subtleism. Is when Mia, and one of I think is one of the most striking production design choices in the film, is in the bedroom in the place she shares with all of her friends. She has this big Bergman poster on the wall, right? Mm-hmm. And or like wallpaper, whatever. She tears that down when she begins work on her own play. And I think we learn a lot about characters through also these very small interactions and changes in the environment.
Yeah.
I also think that the production design is just loaded with little references, little stuff that you just, if you know, you know. Like, why does Mia's apartment and her friend's apartment have a Black Cat poster? The Black Cat, the 1932 Universal Horror Cycle movie. Highly doubt they're watching that kind of stuff, but awesome. I love to see it, and I'm like, yeah. And I mean, if you know LA, there's all kinds of little LA references in like montage bits with neon signs.
The Griffith Observatory, that's a nice subtle.
That's quite a subtle scene there with the Griffith Observatory, which actually we should talk about. That plays out really nicely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Tanner, you were going to say.
Speaking of, I'll try to tie these things together here, like, including the Griffith Observatory. I think what's important about the production design and how Damien Chazelle and the cinematographer Linus Sandgren sort of film LA and film these interior places is all wrapped up in this theme, Abram, there you go, of nostalgia and reverence, and how that should, like, color your creativity, but also just, like, how you operate in a creative space. Because I think that's really what Mia and Sebastian are sort of kind of on polar opposites with this thing. Sebastian's whole character, obviously, is that he is obsessed with the nostalgia for, you know, the great jazz artists of yesteryear. And he has a great reverence for them. He has a great reverence for tradition. He spits and vandalizes the club he once worked at for changing this historic jazz club into a samba tapas place. And Mia, on the other hand, and this is a bit more subtle perhaps, is that she's not really that concerned with all of that. I mean, sure, she has the Ingrid Bergman mural up in her room, but, like, the scene where Sebastian references Rebel Without a Cause, she doesn't get it. Like, she just kind of, like, fakes it. She's like, oh, yeah. And he's like, you've never seen it. She's like, I've never seen it. And then I think Mia kind of has to learn to have some reverence for it, which I think is what the headspace that Damien Chazelle is in as well. He has, like, a respectable amount of reverence for Hollywood, for the Golden Age Hollywood, for classical Hollywood, but he doesn't let it overbear his creativity and allow him to make his own creative voice. And that's what Mia learns as well. She learns to have a nostalgia for these things to a degree, but also become her own creative voice in creating this one-woman show of hers. So I think that's a really interesting theme that is present in our characters and in our set design and in the overall direction and writing from Damien Chazelle.
I also think that Sebastian follows a similar arc in his jazz club, where he goes from it must be at the club to at the end of the movie.
Must be called Chicken on a Stick.
It must be. He loses the I don't know, the dogmatic reverence, and instead has, like, a referential, like, loving embrace of it, while being able to just do it. Being able to accomplish it is enough, and it doesn't need to, you know, perfect is the enemy of done. And I think that Sebastian's character arc comes with that specific plot note, comes around to a similar conclusion at the end.
Yeah, I think that the fact that they are so polar opposite on that, as Tanner was saying, colors each of their character arcs in the way they interact with other people very interestingly, because Mia doesn't seem like she understands too much of LA culture as it's starting, and by the end, through connecting to Sebastian, who obviously has a little bit closer history and ties to the area and its culture, she's able to sort of understand that better. But I think on the other side, you're right about him loosening up, but I think it's nowhere is that more apparent than him allowing himself to work alongside John Legend on jazz that's not jazz that he likes. And I really like that about his character arc, is he loses that dogmatic approach to jazz must be this way. And even though he doesn't love that music, and in fact that's one of the big reasons that they end up breaking up, is that style of music and his distaste for it has kind of like driven him crazy. But the fact that he even signs the contract and goes on tour with that band shows that he realizes that it can't always be his way or the highway. And I really think that watching him sort of soften is why I like Sebastian so much as a character, because he's kind of a dick. I mean, for most of the movie, he's like, he doesn't like letting other people tell him what to do, and he doesn't like them doing their own thing, but he also like doesn't really want to like step on other people. It's a really weird balance for him as a character, especially when he's starting, but he does feel very human in that regard, and that he's annoying, and he's very focused on his own mission to the detriment of his interaction with other people. But he would be an unlikable character if he didn't soften up. If he didn't have the scene where he's doing the photo shoot and he's not doing the photo shoot really well because he's uncomfortable with it, he's biting his lip and all that. But you can tell that, like, Ryan Gosling's kind of having fun with it, and when he's in the at like the concert scene, and he's like kind of giving into the crowd, like looking at him and having fun. I like that he's able to become a softer character that is like more accepting of different styles of life that he absolutely is not at the beginning.
I want to delve into this a little bit, the John Legend of it all, because that's always, every time I've watched this film, particularly because I watched it earlier this year as well for a film club meeting.
Oh, that's right. I didn't go that.
Because you hate film club. No, I'm just kidding. But a question we raised there, and I raise again here to you fellas, is what are we supposed to make of John Legend in that band? Because that is Sebastian's sacrifice to attain his dream. That's what the film is about, after all. You know, you have to sacrifice. They have to sacrifice their relationship with each other to attain this dream.
His sacrifice is listening to modern music.
But like, is John Legend supposed to be like a bad guy? Essentially, is he supposed to be like a negative influence in this film, or?
No, I don't think so. I think there's of course there's unstated history between these two characters. They said something about being in school together, and that John Legend really respects Sebastian, and he thinks that he's like a really good musician. He thinks his skills are really good. But I think there is an ideological difference between the two that Sebastian builds into a conflict. Keith is his name in the movie.
John Legend.
I'm going to stay with character. Okay. John Legend says that it has this idea, and as the band leader, the music that he's making probably is coming from him, this new kind of jazz rock pop fusion style that we hear, that Sebastian, maybe in the past, they were in a band or they did work together and they really fought about the traditionalism versus, I guess, progressivism of jazz music. And John Legend can maybe go past that and just be like, hey, you're a musician, let's work together. And in a way that sometimes you got to do that in the industry. I've had to do that with directors and whatnot. But Sebastian is the one who is inflexible until, the paycheck is there, until the money, which is, I think, a big part of this film and the reality of creative life, that forces him into accepting it and at least working together. So I find that there's an antagonistic relationship that's kind of one-sided in it, at least how it plays out in their interactions.
Yeah. I mean, the real thing is, for me, is that Mia judges him for being a part of this and like wanting and like being in for it for the long haul, even though he doesn't like it. And that's what's most interesting to me about Sebastian's relationship to his new musical career, is that Mia is not all about it, and she judges him for that. That's like kind of like the inciting thing of that whole dinner argument.
Yeah, I think that Mia's disagreement with Sebastian in that moment is her taking his previous inflexibility and ideology about jazz and reapplying that back to him and saying, you were going to be like steady and you were going to just do your thing. What happened to that? What happened to pursuing your passion? And it seems like, I think in at least that moment of the film, Sebastian has given up on the jazz club. He isn't going to do that because he's going to be with the band. And we don't actually find out whether he stayed with the band for all those 5 years in between or if he opened the club right after they broke up. It doesn't matter. But I think that argument stems from Mia's questioning. She first has to question him about his creative allegiances, I'll say, so that later on he can question hers and get her back to the audition. I think that's the important like two-way street of their relationship, that they like need each other to succeed creatively, but I don't think they can actually succeed creatively with each other.
Sure, yeah.
I think I think the John Legend component of the film is maybe where it's at its most interesting thematically to me.
Hmm.
And I think it goes back to the scene where Ryan Gosling white splains jazz. Now
Yes.
I've never participated in a TikTok doxing, so I don't care that he white splains
It was
jazz.
like kind of like well, Damien Chazelle, bubba dubba duh. What's this all about, bubba dubba duh?
If call me anti woke if you want, but I think if you care about that, you're stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just put my thoughts on that out there right now. Unless one of you guys thinks that, then I want to have a
Yeah.
really interesting conversation with you. But if it's one in the audience, you're stupid. Um, what he said, what what Sebastian says in that, which is the idea that to me defines the film. He says to the paraphrase effect of jazz is about conflict and compromise,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the very short idea that I always take away from La La Land, and I sort of apply it in different ways every time I see it. But what's compelling about the idea as it relates to Sebastian and it relates to Keith is that there is no open conversation, at least that we see on screen between me and Sebastian, when she says, "You need this money. You need to go do this." He overhears her talking to her mother, and it prompts this sort of sense of maybe guilt or embarrassment within Sebastian that takes him to that audition. And as we come to hear from him in the dinner table argument scene, he says that maybe it was time for me to give up on that dream. Maybe it was time for me to do this. People would kill to have what I have right now.
Yeah.
How could I walk away from this? And I think it perfectly captures this thematic snare that a lot of people find themselves in, that I have found myself in, of I am doing this thing because I needed the sort of social approval of those around me, and I'm doing well, but I hate it. And what happens? And I think what's really interesting about this scene, and what's really interesting about me and Sebastian on the whole, is that they never reach a place that I feel is comfortable for them. The entire film, especially as it unfolds at the end, which is far less about career and more about something else that I want to talk about, it's this sort of unrequited what if feeling. And I'm not sure you ever really get the sense from either of them that they think they made the right choice at any point. And I think this sort of ambiguity is part of why I really love the film. In the glances exchanged at the end, as we see Mia recount the entire film that we've just watched through the version she wanted, as we see in what is one of the most heartbreaking, I think, single instances of facial acting ever, we see Sebastian just smile at her from the piano bench. I think we learn a lot about the choices they've made that have gotten them there. And it's very resonant, I think, this idea of the thing I want to do, maybe it's going to happen, maybe it's not, but what's in front of me right now is going to work, so I have to take it and I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I come back to the idea of the film being about a whole lot more than filmmaking. It's about this general sense of creative endeavor. I spent a long time making a solid amount of money at a site churning out like news and features that were shit, and I didn't want to do it, but I kind of felt like I had to. And I think that you can apply where Sebastian and Mia are throughout the film to a lot of different facets of life. And it's how I feel like La La Land becomes a wider and more flexible, but even more salient piece, a metaphorical text, as I continue to revisit it. And I think that you couldn't get there if John Legend didn't introduce this alternative, better than nothing, but hyper successful idea into Sebastian's life.
Yeah. I think that another element of this film creatively that really resonates with me on this rewatch, which actually I believe is only my second time seeing this movie since I watched it the first time in 2017, which just goes to show you how much even one viewing really allowed this film to sort of glom onto my life. But is that this film very much is reflective of Damien Chazelle as a person and his interests and where he is in his life, and learn a little bit about the production history behind this, that Justin Hurwitz and Damien Chazelle were roommates in college. They were working on this as a love letter to the Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers Stanley Donen musicals of Hollywood's yesteryear, but that they want to bring a modern spin to it. But not only that they have a reverence for filmmaking, for Los Angeles, and jazz that are all the like 3 core tenets of this film, like through every single action that the actors do, the characters do, the creative team behind this, location scouting, production design, everything really hones down in this being like a singular creative vision of a guy who loves movies, and they're by extension acting in the process of like expressing yourself through the creative voice of writing a play, which Mia does, but also being incredibly passionate about jazz, which obviously both Damien Chazelle and Justin Hurwitz are. If you've listened to the Babylon score and you've watched Whiplash, then you'll know.
Things about jazz?
Barely. But we'll get there another day. I really do like, now that I know more about Justin Hurwitz as a creator, because frankly, this was probably the first time that any of us saw one of his movies. We might have seen Whiplash before this, but I don't think I knew they were from the same director if I had seen them both at that point in time. But now that I've seen Babylon, Whiplash, and La La Land, I have a full understanding of why this is the singular creative vision of Damien Chazelle, and why Tanner, you want to do some wins and noms, winning Best Director, Damien Chazelle. What a deserved fucking win.
So as we said, this film won Best Picture for all of 2 minutes and 23 seconds. But it did win Best Director, which I think at the very least is even like more deserved, because I think it was Abram towards the beginning of this discussion who alluded to the fact that this is such a strong creative directorial vision from Damien Chazelle, who, yes, is still the youngest Best Director winner ever at the age of 32 when he won for this film.
Wow.
Among the other wins and noms are Best Original Song was given to Justin Hurwitz for City of Stars, was the winner there. It won Best...
Should have been
okay, well, Best Production Design, it won. Damien Chazelle won Best Director. Linus Sandgren won Best Cinematography. Justin Hurwitz, obviously, won Best Original Score, as he should have just this last year. Emma Stone won Best Actress in a Leading Role. It was nominated for Original Screenplay, Actor in a Leading Role for Ryan Gosling, Best Picture, of course, Costume Design, Film Editing, original song for The Fools Who Dream as well, sound editing, and sound mixing, back when those were separate awards.
Tanner, before we get into any more conversation, can I ask you to do a little bit, for the sake of our enjoyment and for the audience's maybe knowledge, can you give us a little bit of a play-by-play of this 2 minutes, 23 seconds situation?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
let's hear how it really
all
went
right,
down
so...
on that fateful night.
Warren Beatty goes up there...
A night that lives in infamy.
Yeah, a night that lives in infamy. Now, I believe it has been explained as... it was a envelope for... Best Actress for Emma Stone was accidentally grabbed by Warren Beatty. And he went up there, and he opened up the thing, and he's like, Best Picture goes to yada yada yada. And he looks at it, and he said, and he looks at it for a moment, and he looks at the woman on stage with him. I don't know who the woman on stage with him is. I'm sure she's a super famous actress, and everyone in the comments will yell at me.
She is. Yeah, let me look up.
Isn't it? I think it's his co-star in Bonnie and Clyde, but I don't know her name off the top of my head. So anyway, he goes up there and like looks at her, and she's like, "Oh, give it here," and then she reads it and she says "La La Land," and then the whole team for La La Land comes up. Da 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 da. Mark Platt, Ben Platt's dad, is up there, and he speaks first, and then another producer for the film speaks, and he's like, you could
Faye Dunaway,
thank you. And there's some milling about in the background. There's some milling about, some talking, some as Mark Platt is giving his speech. And then the second guy goes up, and he's like, yeah, I want to thank my people, my family, my producers, all that stuff. And he looks behind him, and he just comes up to the mic again, and he says, "We lost, by the way." and then the audience...
he's like, Moonlight, it's actually you
Moonlight,
guys.
you guys won Best Picture. And then he holds up the actual card and we do a comical, like, crash zoom in on the card that says Moonlight Best Picture. And then that's it. And then the Moonlight team comes up there and sit. And I think they're both on stage for the rest of for that entire speech. So yeah, what an interesting roughly 2.5 minutes.
I think it's probably the moment in
absolutely
Oscars history.
Yeah, the fuck up of all time.
Yeah,
but honestly, I'm just glad it happened. Moonlight still won. Like, nothing changed on that front. but we got a funny story out of it. And at the end
How
of the
many
day,
of us were watching?
Really
I was watching when it happened.
No, I wasn't.
I was watching.
I was watching. No.
Well, there you go. So, no, it should have won a lot of these. I'm not really sure who won all of these. Maybe I can look into that for a moment. But I do know who won Best Actor over Ryan Gosling, because if we were to talk about character specifics and actor specific performances here, Ryan Gosling I fucking love in this movie. He is so fucking good, dude. He is so hilarious in this movie. But he lost Best Actor to piece of shit Casey Affleck. So Academy, your decision lives in infamy.
For what, Manchester by the Sea?
And as much as that performance did give us the iconic, hilarious out of context moment of him grabbing the cop's gun and trying to shoot himself, which I think is a great reaction gif on Twitter. Ryan Gosling is just immaculate in this film. I mean, Ryan Gosling has really gotten this online sort of record as like the literally me character in a lot of his roles. He's very anticipated for his upcoming role in Barbie. But dude, he's so good in this. I love him. All the little looks, all of like his little like annoyances with just grievances with the modern world. His line about how everyone in Los Angeles has nostalgia for everything but respects nothing. And he is very like that guy. For that reason, he's very annoying, as Tucker said, but he gets away with it because he's Ryan Gosling. He's so damn charming and he's so damn handsome. He is like classically a Hollywood handsome, which is why he's perfect for this like love letter to Fred Astaire musicals of the time, song and dance stuff. And he can sing, and he can dance. He's got it all. He's the whole package. Ryan Gosling, please marry me.
And he learned how to play the piano.
He did learn how to play the piano.
He did.
Which is way better than anything Casey Affleck's ever done.
Yes, certainly.
I think he gets a bad rap as being like Mr. Wooden and being like not a whole lot of like facial acting sometimes. Mm-hmm. I think that in this film like can really be to his benefit. I think he does get lots of those great. Ryan Gosling has a great smile, and he knows how to use it in the films that he's in. I think though that Tanner, you're right. He is super super good. His jokes and he's not intentionally trying to be like funny. I feel like in those moments he's just trying to say what he thinks, and a lot of the times what he thinks is sort of ridiculous and sort of right. It plays so well all the time.
I love just the little looks that he has. Just the funny.
Hold on. Let's just take a pause. Cat's loud.
Yeah.
Cat might need to be moved.
Yeah, no, I think it's just because
hearing my own damn breath.
Anna just came back from a walk, and I think she grabbed her, and okay. she walked in the door, and that's probably why she started going off. But
hold on. Well, it's a good chance.
Oh no, she's just right outside the door. What is your problem, little stinker? Just come on in here.
How am I gonna fix this?
Tanner, I missed when you'd ask me that.
What is your problem, little stinker?
Just gonna chill in here. No, I better put you downstairs, just in case.
Impromptu popcorn being constructed out of it.
Jesus, we're in a fucking category 17 windstorm right now. I'm reporting from the field. There's a fucking tornado here.
Ow.
Cat loud.
Tucker, you didn't properly appreciate the way in our WhatsApp conversation after you asked, "You done?" I responded with the next line of the La La Land song.
Yeah, that was good. That was really funny. Sam was sitting next to me as you were texting me those lyrics. And I'm like, he's texting me the lyrics from Another Day of the Sun. I'm like, all right, bastard. Fuck off. It was funny, though.
That is my favorite Mogger.
It's a pretty good Mogger. I've only gotten a few Moggers.
Yeah?
Yeah. There's one Mogger per stage.
Point this a bit towards mine. A bit more.
Okay.
Tanner, what do you think about Moggers?
I'm gonna veto that one. I'm gonna veto that question. I'm gonna veto this bit. I'm vetoing all of it. I'm vetoing that image. I'm vetoing it. Veto.
I think I fixed this thing, so we should be good to go again too. God, it's gonna take me a long time to edit out all my breaths because I'm sure you could hear every single one of them.
There was a few at the beginning that was really like super poppy. But it was only a couple of moments. Like it wasn't like it's not.
I just was watching on my levels, and every time I go, it'd be like it would like breathe. I would like it would, and my little interface would light up too, and I'm like, this is.
All right, let me hit you with this again. I just love all of Ryan Gosling's little Gosling-isms in this. I mean, maybe one of my favorites is when he's doing the 80s like cover band at the party in the spring segment, and Mia requests I ran, and just he like looks down, he's like, oh my god, and he looks up, and he looks down, he looks up again. Just the look that he has, he's like shocked and angry and surprised all in one. Hang on, I'll back up so I don't peak my levels here. But when Mia tells him that she doesn't want to go back for this like interview or the audition of a lifetime, he just goes, "What?" He just does that. And she freaks out because he just yelled so loud, and then he says, "You're a baby."
Yeah,
he's so funny, dude.
That is so funny.
I love that scene because we establish him honking the horn earlier in the film, and we just kind of forget about it because it only happens twice. And the second time she's sitting down at dinner with her dad, and then just.
And
it's really,
you
really
cut
well
up to him, and he's just looking around because he doesn't know what house she's in. He's just looking around, looking for her anywhere she is.
The film has amazing comedic timing. It is a very, very funny film because it's not only him doing that, holding down the horn. It's a neighbor that comes out and throws the newspaper that he ducks down to avoid. It's all really well executed, and you're right. Now, I think that Ryan Gosling is exceptionally good when he is particularly wooden. Place Beyond the Pines, Drive, Blade Runner. But nobody can ever take away from the fact that he was that little boy dancing in that video that always goes viral on Twitter.
This is true.
And I think, Tanner, what you're illustrating,
the yodeling one with the hat.
No, he's in
he's in like parachute pants.
Yes,
I'm joking.
You illustrated really, really well, Tanner. Just the fact that he has incredible range in this film. I love him flipping off Mia as he drives by on the freeway. I love him.
That's their meet cute. Yeah. This movie's meet cute is a meet ugly because they're just kind of like boop at each other, and you're like, okay, they're together. They will see each other again.
When he when he's negotiating with J.K. Simmons, one for me. I think it's one for you, one for me. Two for you, one for me.
How about all for you, none for me? He's like, I love it. Great idea. He's like, great, mutual decision that I made. Yeah, and I signed off on it, so that's us.
But he also brings such amazing melancholy to the role also. Not only in that iconic stare and half smile I talked about earlier that I love, but in the moment when we get, I believe it's the first vocal refrain of City of Stars.
Yes.
And he's walking out onto the pier. And it's just this moment that, again, it speaks to what I said before about the film really getting us into the headspaces of characters. Because it really just serves for him to begin to illustrate this romance with Mia that he never thought he'd be able to have, as per the conversation with his sister. But then just the very suave and earnest choreography of him playing with the hat and then doing the dance with that man's wife, and then the man hitting him on the shoulder to get him out of the way.
That's my wife!
I think he just hits all of these notes really, really beautifully.
Yeah, I think that the reason that Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone work so well in this movie together, not only because
we can't just stop slobbing on Ryan Gosling.
No, we got to talk about it. We'll talk about Emma Stone. We'll talk about
Emma Stone too.
I was using the transition.
Oh, okay.
And then you fucking stopped the transition. Come on,
well,
come on, man. I know what I'm doing.
Kicked over that segue.
I've been doing movie reviews since longer than most of you were born.
Timo wanted to talk about fellatio. We get it. He wanted to do it. Yeah. I like. This is a very high class podcast, so I use the term fellatio.
There you go. That's nice.
Of course. But Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone work so well together in this film because Ryan Gosling is a stone-faced person, but I think it reflects his personality in that he doesn't quite know how to express his emotions, and when he does, it comes out in like fits and spurts, and it's not quite right, and he like rubs people the wrong way. But on the other hand, Mia is one of the most expressive people in the world. Emma Stone's face is so different, and her eyes are so large that you see every thought and emotion running through her head at any given moment in time, and she can't really hide the emotions that she's having. And if she's hurt by something or confused, there's like large changes to the expressions on her face, and I think that sort of opposites attract. Just basic nature of the way that their faces are working makes them feel like they complement each other in a really distinct way, and it leads to great comedic timing. We already talked about Ryan Gosling, but when they're paired together and Emma Stone's making like these crazy expressions and he's just sitting there like with a little tiny grin on his face, like barely like 1/8 of a grin, but you know he's smiling because you see it in his eyes. I think that their difference there, the gap between the expressiveness of their facial features, which is a very like relatively simple thing in terms of it's not the writing, it's not their costumes that are keeping them so far apart, but even just there on that small level, they have this opposites attract sort of energy that I think makes it really compelling to watch them together. Because Emma Stone is also very
Emma Stone
great
is no. I talked about the comedy for Ryan Gosling, so I'll do it both ways. Emma Stone is obviously no slouch when it comes to comedies. She's got a strong background in with Easy A and Superbad, but she brings it here. I mean, another one of my favorite moments comedically is when she's in the audition for Dangerous Minds meets the OC, and she spouts out her first line, and then the other lady just monotone as ever goes, "Lady, why you be trippin'?" And then Emma Stone waits just the perfect amount of time before saying, "No, Jamal.
No.
You be trippin'."
You be tripping.
Oh my god, it's so ridiculous.
Funny. It's so funny.
Well, and those scenes, all those audition scenes in my mind really kind of bring this like making art is painful, and it is painful to do these, and she portrays just that agony of being in the audition very, very well. We could see on her face the disappointment when they're just like not paying attention to her, trying to get a sandwich. You know, there's the one of the auditions. There's like a face like pops
That's
up.
the
in
one
the
where she is
like trying
fucking killing it, dude. Like Emma Stone obviously deserved that Oscar, if only for that one audition, which is basically also her audition for this Oscar, where she's the one where she's on the phone and she is fucking nailing that shit, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and so and multiple times, and I really like how all those auditions set her up for the final one, wherein it's the casting director saw your play, she loved you in your play, come in, and it's like, and she's getting the respect that is due to her that she should have been getting the whole time, and at first it's a little off-putting. She doesn't quite know what to do with it when they're like, okay, show us. And they're like just both looking at her, both paying attention. And it takes her that little moment, and then she settles into herself, and we get that amazing solo song from her at the end about the aunt in Paris. That is, I mean, it's tear-wrenching. It makes me cry. It's amazing and amazingly performed. And I just, that little snippet of her performance, which of course, she gets all, the moments with the roommates and being reluctant to go to the party. And then I like her in the party scenes where like, just like surrounded by these LA social climbers, sleazebag types that, either just she's like totally disgusted by, or she just doesn't want to have anything to do with. And nowhere is this said. She communicates it all through her facial expressions and her body acting.
I think she delivers the comedy very well. I love the bit. Just to the point with their general chemistry first. This is what Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney have to beat for me. This is the bar. This is the gold standard. Okay. I love the scene when she's working her shift and Sebastian comes in. And there's this other woman who's trying to get a refund for the non-gluten-free
It's like a famous
Danish.
person.
Yeah.
She's like some bigwig that is entitled and asshole-like.
And Mia,
aren't we all?
And Mia is just I got to go ask. Talking, and she talks with Sebastian for a little bit, and then we see the woman go like, and she delivers so well. I'm sorry, I
actually have to go ask.
I think she hits the comedic notes really, really well, but to me, while I think that Ryan Gosling is very, very good with the dramatic material, Emma Stone to me is a cut above with the dramatic work here. The Fools Who Dreamed is probably, I think it's definitely the most affecting number of the film for me, although it's probably my second favorite behind Someone in the Crowd. It's my favorite, always has been, always will be. But her delivery there, that was the, okay, now we're crying for the rest of the movie point for me.
Yeah.
Because she finds this sort of vulnerability in the performance of Mia that I think is incredible. And she says a lot with a little. Now, obviously, she's saying a lot in that moment, but I also think of the time when she's out to dinner with Greg and Greg's brother, and they're talking about, hey, you know, it's a great emerging market, Indonesia, and you just see like on her face the knowledge that Sebastian's waiting for in the Rialto to go watch Rebel Without a Cause. Her performance of I have to go. I'm sorry, I have to go, and her running to the theater. She just does this all so effortlessly. I think it's an exceptional performance. And it's even better when they're together, not only in their more serious moments, but I also love, we have to talk about the iconography, we have to talk about the tap dance number.
A Lovely Night is my favorite number.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it. This might be unpopular opinion.
I think I agree with
I mean, that is like, that's the Singing in the Rain. That's the Singing in the Rain influence all over this beat, dog, as the kids are saying.
Yeah.
But like, how it evolves from like just kind of little talk singy segment into this tap number, or they're like spinning around and dancing. They're almost like the tap dancing does give it this like sort of snappy, like the choreography is almost like their dialogue where they're kind of snapping at each other, they're ribbing each other, but it's translated through this tap dance number, which gives us the iconic poster shot where they're like crossing their arms, and it gives us like these cute little bits where they're like he's kicking dirt on her shoes or whatever, and he's looking in her bag and she snags it away from him and stuff like that. That is the great wordless stuff that they can also do. Yeah. It's the very same in the Griffith Observatory like fantastical dream sequence. The moment where he just like lifts her into the air and suddenly they are dancing through the cosmos. I mean, come on, dude. It is unquestionably great.
It's so romantic too. I mean, like they go to Griffith. I love the moment where he just drives.
Always kick dirt on your potential.
Dude, okay, I have to stop. I have to stop right here. Woo! I have to say the one moment that like sells me on just like I'm a sap for this stuff is when Mia finds her car and Sebastian's there alone and he just walks all the way back down the hill to the party because he parked right across the street and he went all the way out of that way just to talk to her. They do the dance number and he walks all the way back. Undeniable. Love it, love it, love it.
I've been there, brother. He's just like me for real.
That's the real Ryan Gosling. He's just like me for real.
The Griffith Observatory section. I really like this one because to me it has that artificial quality to it. It has this very not like we're not witnessing real life here. We're not. This is even the filmmaking it's kind of fakey. Like it doesn't look as if you were really trying to make this look real. And I appreciate that because it feels like again one of these callbacks to the older musicals. But it's so seamlessly done that one moment they're floating up in the sky and then they come down and then they just sit in a chair. And I'm like, okay, so are they wearing a wire rig? I can't see the wire rig. Like, it's got to be under there. Like, I think I know how they did that stuff. I don't really know how they did that stuff. I know most of, like, that sequence is on green screen, and that's cool. It looks great for it. But the actual practical filmmaking of shooting in the Griffith Observatory with them flying around in that room, how? I don't know. I want to know.
Yeah. And that's the commitment to the craft here that I think makes this such an exceptionally well-polished film. There aren't really any sequences where you're like, oh, okay, they had to like sort of skimp here and like, well, let's just like sort of cut it a bit because we're going to put the budget elsewhere. This is a very balanced film in terms of how good it looks. The cinematography, Linus Sandgren being very creative, working alongside Damien Chazelle to like create a very free-flowing camera, using, again, as we're talking about this, to sort of stepping up the game of what older musicals were able to do, modern technology of underwater cameras and giant cranes and crazy rigs and balanced cameras that can do complete flips and go in and out of weird scenes. And like, I really do love the way that they were able to use modern technology to sort of its fullest to make you be like, how? And frankly, it doesn't really happen that much anymore. I mean, we were very blown away watching something like Everything Ever All at Once and Top Gun Maverick last year. But this film, I think, in more subtle ways, makes me feel like, wow, no one else is doing it like this. Like how they're combining real locations and incredible camera work and like seamless CGI and special effects with very real practical work that meshes without a single seam.
The lighting. When all those moments in the movie where we get to a character's interior moment, and we push in on a character, and the whole lighting just it just switches to being, real focused on one person, and the backgrounds just disappear, and you're like, that's not CGI. That is, there's a dude sitting there on set with his two little levers, and he's got one, he goes, and it just changed. And like, I know how this stuff is made, so I know that it's really, really difficult to do that, to actually set that up on set, but it's so perfect for the scene, and it just communicates all the emotion and what the sentiment we are supposed to be feeling without telling us to feel it. It makes us feel it, and it doesn't tell us to feel away. I think that that's a big success of this movie, is a showing of emotion rather than a telling. The classic.
Of course.
I'm going to continue to be cliche during this episode.
To build on that, Timo, to go back to the tap dance Lovely Night number for a second, so many of these numbers end abruptly and they end awkwardly. And what's great about this one is that they're about to kiss, and then the phone goes off, and we're hard snapped out of it. And I think that, again, wordlessly puts us where a character's emotional state is, and it happens again in the theater when in really spectacular fashion the film blows out. But part of what makes the Griffith Observatory so great is that there is no interruption. There is the kiss. And I think that, again,
and the camera pushes in really hard, and the music just goes all crazy, and I'm standing up in my chair like, wow.
To your point, Tucker, about how it feels almost impossible, I think that the actual production and lighting and camera and sonic, or aural, I think is the right word, language of the filmmaking all sort of coalesces to create this state where we're in characters' minds, and we're moving in and out of them, and anything is really possible in this sort of patchwork diegesis of the film. When a person is performing, the light will become a spotlight, and that's not jarring, that's understood, because from those opening moments, you can open the back of a U-Haul truck and people are playing the timpani, right? And so I think it's so effective.
Instead of boiling.
Instead of boiling. Well, it's okay. It's winter. It's winter. It's winter. It's fine.
It's winter.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah.
I just think it's really effective.
Looks like
how they build expectation in the audience, and sort of cultivate and edge your emotions until you finally get the kiss. Right. I think that's incredibly effective.
I think that's a thing that is one of the greatest points of these older musicals. They were able to so effectively string us along until they just
balls.
Yep, until they, and then twist them too, until they were like, okay, now you get to feel. And in some films nowadays, we are often deconstructing and playing with stuff so much that we don't get this like real sincere. Why did I say it like that?
Yeah.
Moment that just lets us feel, and lets us feel great or horrible. But if we feel horrible, it still feels great, because I'm like, damn, this movie's making me feel awful. How amazing.
To just put a stinger on that, I am now a graduated, we all are, we're all graduated film students. We all have degrees. And I can't speak for your film programs, but at no point in my 4 years did ball tugging or cinematic edging ever get brought up. And I think that was a major issue.
I think it's really
an educational failing, I feel.
Be the change you wish to see, Abram. I think you've got.
We need to start BLB University. BLBU.
Yeah.
BLBU.
Top 10 biggest problems with the American education system.
No ball
Number
tugging.
1. Now, talking about the sincerity of this film, I think that is another element of why I am able to connect to this as a musical and as a romance film more so than many other musicals, which of course I'm not a fan of musicals.
Except for the exceptions.
Except for when I am. Or other romance films, is when these characters grow and make their changes and end up becoming super successful by the end. This is a film set in Hollywood, and it's not our first time. It's not our first rodeo seeing a film set in Hollywood. It's not our first time seeing a musical. It's not our first time seeing a romance film. But I think all of these elements are treated with such sincerity that by the end of the film, when Mia is a super successful actress and Sebastian has his jazz club
Sebs.
that has the stool,
Sebs.
Club. I feel like these are people that somehow stumbled in to these roles. Of course, they were very confident, or they were creative, they were ambitious, but they were having issues along the way, which feels very genuine. I like that. Unlike many of the Hollywood-based films that we've seen, though this was less about filmmaking than some of the other Hollywood films we've seen, they feel like people. Of course, the ridiculous fantasized versions of LA people, but the way that they argue with each other and flip each other off and have self-doubts constantly, I mean, even to the end of the film, that makes me appreciate their success at the end in a way that not many movies I feel really make me connect to. Is the fact that they're ribbing each other basically the entire movie, and there's like a moment or two where they're like really swept up in the emotions, but otherwise they're like, yeah, okay, we're having fun, but as you were saying, Abram, they're not fully settled into it, and then they succeed at the end, but at what cost? I think makes it like this mixed sort of thing, but that is a very sincere sort of realistic approach, realistic in a film that is so fantastical approach to life and the pros and cons of making big decisions about your life and not quite feeling like you're the odd one out. And I think that's really, really distinct.
Well, yeah,
really
the whole point.
Abram, go ahead, Tam.
The whole point of the film is like reality in juxtaposition with fantasies, with dreams. And I want to talk about the end of the film because I feel that's, if you think about it, Damien Chazelle knows how to end his goddamn movies. If you really think about it, I mean, he's got 3 banger endings to all 3 of his films. And this one,
yeah,
he's only made 3 films.
First Man was good.
Oh wait, he did make 4. I forgot he made First Man. I totally forgot. Damien Chazelle, I apologize.
I didn't mention that earlier because I haven't seen it.
I apologize. It deserves a rewatch from me. I think First Man is okay. I might love it on a rewatch. In fact, I don't know. That's besides the point. Ending of La La Land is perfect because you get Mia and Tom Everett Scott, the guy from That Thing You Do. Go watch That Thing You Do. It's a great film directed by Tom Hanks. They walk into the club and you see Ryan Gosling on the stage there. You see Emma Stone and they recognize each other and there's that glance. There's the shared look. You could have ended the film there. And then Damien Chazelle's like, no. I gotta flex a little bit more. I gotta flex for the next 15 minutes. I gotta flex.
You haven't cried enough. You haven't cried enough, and I'm being paid by Kleenex to make this movie because you're gonna go through so many boxes, and you need to go through another one right now.
We even could have ended it at the end. We even could have ended it at the very end of that fantasy sequence that we understand is the romanticized golden age of Hollywood ideal of how this film would have ended. Is that they get the dream and they get each other. That's the ideal. But no, we cut back to the reality. We snap back to reality, as a great poet Eminem once said. Yeah. And they share the glance once again, and that's when the film ends. Damien Chazelle gets you 3 times with that ending, and it's just like almost indescribable how perfect it is.
The end of the film to me is what really grabbed me on this 4th viewing, because there's a reading of the film that I think I probably shared more maybe on my earlier viewings of it, in that what we see in that fantasy sequence is Mia wishing to be successful with Sebastian not finding his success and him only being secondary to her. And now that is sort of what literally unfolds in the actions here, as he sort of is seen not only sort of doting over her, but also ignoring the potential to go work with Keith.
I love the moment in that dream sequence where he like walks up and and Ryan Gosling just looks at it and John Legend just like puts his hands up and turns around.
Yeah, it's. I think it was my reading of it just sort of being this, because Ryan Gosling even makes this accusation that Mia is sort of happier when Sebastian isn't doing well in their fight at the dinner table. But rewatching the ending now, I don't think it's manipulative as much as it is sort of a desire for something larger than just career. And maybe this is just sort of what I take out of the film now, but I almost leave La La Land not with this sense of like, oh man, I can't believe they didn't get together, or like, oh, I can't believe that Mia wanted to hold Sebastian back, but like, they wanted something more for their life than their career. And I think that to me, when I watch the ending of the film, it's this sort of moment of them recognizing that they lost a chance for more. They lost a chance for a family, and that maybe that wasn't the right choice.
I mean, it has this fake ass family who we don't know.
Hey, it's Tom Everett Scott, the guy from That Thing You Do.
And random guy.
We get this feeling that not only, because Tanner, there's not only the moment where they see each other, but there's this long pause and silence as Sebastian says at the piano before he starts playing City of Stars, and I start crying again. But I
believe that's actually in the script.
Yeah.
The audience starts crying.
The audience cries. Period.
There's this feeling almost that the choice to call it Seb's and to take her design is almost like this admission, in my opinion, that there was something more to Sebastian's life than Chicken on a Stick. It was Mia. And the song he wants to play to communicate that to her is City of Stars, and that is their song. That is the song that is tied to the emotional beats of the film. That the leitmotif is emotional for their relationship here. And I think the decision to do that kind of shows that his art is inseparable from her, and his life should have been too. And Mia didn't necessarily want a life where she was successful and he wasn't, but a life that he was in. And I think that's what's so heartbreaking about it. And to me, it's a sort of moment of there is more to life than the career.
Yeah.
I think that's the note that La La Land leaves me on when I rewatch it now. There's more to it than Chicken on a Stick. There is more to it than the movie in Paris.
Yeah. Abram, I like that.
What a freaking message to be delivered straight to our artist brains. That actually do.
Frankly,
people like me.
I would give up anything for a literal chicken on a stick. Just some fried chicken on a kebab. I'd give up my life for that, I think.
Man, I'm hungry.
Tanner, I got great news for you, buddy.
What is it? Anything else? Sorry.
Earlier,
I'll tell you off air.
Yeah. I got one more thing. Abram accused me of being video essay pilled. And I'm not only going to confirm that, but I'm going to give more fuel to that fire, because I was watching a video essay that I posted in our BLB Discord, link in the description to join, by Thomas Fight, excellent film video essayist, about this new concept of meta-modernism. And I hadn't really heard of that before, but in short, you got modernism, you got postmodernism. They're both kind of bunk. You combine them together, you got meta-modernism. And then
I like that.
This film is an early example, I feel like, of this new cultural, societal, psychological, philosophical wave that we are going to be entering more and more, that was really hammered home with Everything Everywhere. But this film actually exemplifies a lot of these qualities of deconstructing our understanding of media, deconstructing what it means to be an artist, deconstructing all this stuff, but then building it back up for a sincere and heartfelt story that teaches us a quite important lesson, as Abram just told us what the lesson is, that the career's kind of not everything and that there's a lot to life. I think that we should be on the lookout for more stuff like this as a trend, and La La Land is an early example of how to do that really well, how to be referential, how to be cynical, how to, talk about what it's really like to live in this modern hell of a world, but then to still have a good time, and how to come to a real realization about what it's like. You can't just deconstruct. Once you deconstruct everything, there's nothing more to look through. You see through everything and you see nothing at the end. And that is, I think, on the out. We're no longer going to be seeing films that are like that. And instead, we'll get more and more films like this that present how it works, but then also tell us why we should care about it and why it should affect us. And I because I watched the video, I was trying to pay attention to that in the movie, and I find that it's totally there. And in Thomas Flight's essay, he doesn't even mention La La Land. He uses other films as his examples, but something that I am going to be paying attention to in the future and is very salient for this film.
All right.
Did he mention 65 in that video?
No.
All right, we are deep down the philosophical rabbit hole. We are so deep that we've mentioned the film 65. I think it's time to wrap it up, gentlemen.
Shall we give... Let's give this film a score. This is the last score of Quest. Do you know what you're going to give it? Because I do.
Yeah, I also do, but I'm not sure I'm signed into our accounts. Give me a minute.
Okay, well, I'll fill some time. What am I thinking of right now? What am I thinking of? Ooh, I think... So, okay, well, actually, before we hear the score, this is good quality filler. The film that actually won the 2017 Academy Award was Moonlight. And we gave that film an 8.8 out of 10, and it's at the 21st spot on the list. Just saying. So that's our comparison, because I think these films should be really closely analyzed right next to each other. We'll see what this is going to give. And then I think we should talk about which we think is the better movie, too, just because.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I did a little two-factor authentication. Now complete. My score is in.
All right. Let's find out in 3, 2, 1, go! We've got a score. Thank you, R2D2. It's really, really large. It's 9.6.
Oh.
That would rocket this movie.
Can we do this? It's obviously just for the sake of it's just an exercise at this point. But I want to do this tie litigation.
Okay, yeah, it is.
Okay. After the point breakdown,
after
though.
Abram.
So we all gave this movie at least a 9. I gave it a flat 9, which is what I also gave a sunrise, whatever. And then Tucker gave it a 9.6, followed by Tanner's 9.8, and then Abram gave it a 10.0.
Surprising nobody.
Given that he said at the beginning of the episode this was his favorite movie ever,
if anything deserves a 10 out of 10, it's your favorite movie.
Unless Abram is one of those guys who's like, a perfect film doesn't
exist.
exist. Perfect movies don't exist, you know.
No, I'm not one of those. Yeah. I give so many 5 stars on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
We're just here to have fun.
Yeah.
Calm down, everybody.
Yeah.
Give me a favorite movie.
Okay.
10.
What's the tie?
Lordy,
What's
this
the tie,
is litigation.
Timo? Surely it'll be
The tie
easy to
is
decide.
For our number 3rd film on the list, it would have to be the first film that we recorded when I was sitting in this very room, Parasite.
Oh my god, it's full
doing
circle, boys. Oh, Jesus.
Okay.
Parasite versus La La Land in the Octagon on the quest for the bestest.
Oh, I gave him the...
Those are both so
I even
amazing
gave him
films.
the same score.
I'll start.
Abram.
Okay, Abram?
What's it gonna be?
What's my... Okay, so my score... In retrospect, my score for Parasite would also be pretty close to a 10. I don't think it would be a 10, but it'd be a lot closer than it is now. It's a flat 9. Parasite's another film that's very important to me, especially now that I'm like leftist pilled brain, leftist brain pilled, whatever the fuck.
Abram, please, now that you're woke.
Now that I'm woke, right. But don't talk about the white splaining of jazz, because that's cringe.
Yeah, there you
go. I think that they are in different ways, in my opinion, commensurate achievements. But for me, the reason I put La La Land above is because La La Land is such a grand vision. It's executed on, with, in my opinion, no real failings. Parasite is an incredible exercise in tension in writing, but I think that the simple spectacle that is La La Land is incredible. But what's interesting is when we often compare a film like Parasite to maybe a spectacle-driven film, often we're talking about spectacle in the context of spectacle is what the film has to offer, and that's what it has. But La La Land has a spectacle that is not only visual, but also sort of intellectual for people who enjoy filmmaking, but there's also a movie on top of it. I think that La La Land is such a sort of far-reaching achievement that, to me, it has the commanding advantage of 2 seminal films.
If we want to talk about 2 films that and which one has the advantage, because I do have both of these at the same score, and I'll keep it simple here.
You know what you also have, Tanner? You have the posters for both.
Oh, they're right
of
next to
these
each other on our wall
downstairs.
downstairs.
Those are the only two posters we have in our living room.
Correct.
It's so fitting that they're going to be right
That's
next
bizarre,
to each
coincidences.
Man. This is fucking crazy.
I am going to analyze these films, since I have them with the same score, as what is the more important hypothetical Best Picture winner. And by that metric, I probably have to go Parasite. It's the first foreign film to win Best Picture. It is, of course, teaching us dumbass Americans to get over that 1-inch barrier of subtitles, as Bong Joon-ho so eloquently said on that fateful night. Even though he didn't say that in his Oscar speech, did he? I think that was a Golden Globe one.
No, I think it was
anyway,
Globes,
that fateful night at the Golden Globes, not the Oscars. But anyway, I'm gonna go Parasite. Both these films are amazing home runs. Can't say enough about them.
I think I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna go with Parasite. By the virtue that recency bias is really hurting Parasite in my mind. I haven't actually seen Parasite in years. It's got to be. I got to watch that movie again because it's excellent. And I think that you're right. As an important Best Picture winner, La La Land. I think we shall study it in the future for all those extraordinarily hoity-toity philosophical reasons I mentioned earlier. But I do think that Parasite succeeds as an incredibly strong movie that has just an unbelievably tight script that executes on tension and has its own share of spectacle. That movie has some pretty insane shit that happens in it, if you recall, with the rain and all the killing at the end and the blood. Like, man, neither of these movies are slept on.
That's true.
And I would be pretty happy if one was on,
millions upon millions of logs on Letterboxd for both of these.
Yeah. I'm also going to go with Parasite. I think for me, over the course of Quest, I've come to really appreciate films that feel incredibly distinct. And that is something that I put a lot of weight on in my personal life for any art that I'm consuming, something that does something that I haven't seen before. And Parasite's style, not only being, I think, the first Bong Joon-ho movie I've watched. I might have seen Snowpiercer before that, but those films actually aren't that similar, so regardless. Feeling very distinct, like maybe it's taking something from Alfred Hitchcock, but maybe it's taking something from David Lynch. Like, there's so many weird things that Parasite synthesizes that it ultimately ends up feeling like nothing I've ever seen in my life. But Parasite, or La La Land rather, is it's doing the modern version of what Gene Kelly, Stanley Donen, and Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers were doing 60, 70, 80 years ago. I don't know the math.
That sounds right.
Sounds about right, though.
They were working. All three of those were working for at least 30 years. So you got it.
It's a great point. Yeah, I might have nailed somewhere in there. But La La Land is so important and impactful to me because as a film fan and someone interested in film history, I love when things are modernized like this. This is one of my favorite movies of all time because it modernizes things. But Bong Joon-ho won Best Picture with a Korean movie about class where people die and they're in a weird modern house. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? That's the only movie my mom has seen where she told me she shouldn't have watched it. So
we are
that's
shrugging off the yoke of meta-modernism and firmly grabbing onto that yoke of postmodernism, a postmodernist film like Parasite.
Okay, you hate La La Land. That's fine.
No, yeah, I think that's what everyone should take away from this.
Yeah.
This hour and 30-minute long discussion where I don't think we criticized the movie.
I don't think so.
Let's not start now.
Okay. I don't.
Okay.
Could anyone even do it? Can anyone here
it.
even say anything bad about La La Land?
Another Day of Sun doesn't take place in the Hyperloop.
Correct. There it is. Damien Chazelle, checkmate.
Write your criticisms down in the comments.
That's it.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, boys? We've ended Quest twice now. Let's do it a third time.
We're gonna end Quest once more, with feeling.
With feeling. Well, as I sit in this very bedroom, in this very spot that we started Quest with Parasite.
Yeah.
I just gotta say, it's been a wonderful ride. We've seen so many great movies. We've seen so many middling movies, and we've seen so many shitty movies that it's just great. I mean, we love the shitty ones too. Like, did you not have fun watching Crash? I had a lot of fun watching Crash.
The probability, man.
Had fun.
So many
I
fun
did.
memories.
But we will be back with.
This has been a show
with 1 or 2 more videos. How many more? We don't know.
We've gonna synthesize our findings. We've told you
That's a good
individually about each of these films what we think, but now that we know all of them, what does it mean
What does it all mean, Basil?
to have watched all the Best Picture winners? I don't know. You're gonna have to stay tuned, stay subscribed, hit the notification bell.
Stay cool.
On
Stay
on.
warm and
Not
Hey,
yet.
not yet. You're skipping ahead now, Tucker. Keep it tuned here on Backlot Banter. We've got lots more content planned for you, including a little bit more Best Picture stuff, as well as a yet unknown continuation of the Quest IP into the
We love
future.
brands. Quest is a brand. Global branding.
no.
IP, yes. Intellectual property.
So, yeah.
We're gonna rebrand as just of the bestest.
Ooh.
Of the best.
Yeah, we need to drop the vowels out. That's what they do, right? No, they drop the consonants out of apps. Is that what the kids?
Well, we dropped the HB if you just dropped the first half.
Yeah.
How would you drop consonants out? That would be
No,
fucking nonsense. That'd be
No, it's the vowels. You drop the vowels out.
What?
That'd be unintelligible.
QST.
What are you
Like
talking about?
like
BST.
Tinder and stuff like that. You just
Like Max.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
MAX.
Oh well, they didn't drop
No.
all of them. There's still an I in Tinder.
Good point. That is a vowel, isn't it?
You gotta be selective.
We're getting
whatever,
in the weeds.
Whatever. Tell us how we should rebrand. Until next time, cause next time is always coming. Stay cool, keep warm, and peace.
Next time is always.
Do you drop?
I think we should make a stay cool, keep warm, and peace shirt.
Oh yeah.
It's a good idea.
The B&B
drop
merch
the
store is
Y?
coming soon.